A classic photo finish between two veteran drivers and huge crashes to end the race. Let's break down NASCAR's playoff race at Talladega. Hello everybody, welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host Alex Lambert, and let's break down this year's fall Talladega race, the playoff Talladega race, and it was no disappointing race at all. A lot of action. Couple of big crashes. We had the big one of the biggest crashes in NASCAR history later on in the race with 5 laps remaining. But in the end, it was a photo finish, another Talladega Classic photo finish between two, what I would say, veteran drivers, Rickey Stenhouse and Brad Keselowski. We'll break down the finish. We'll break down the results. We'll talk about the playoff grid now, where William Byron has now punched his ticket into the next round, the round of 8. Let's go ahead and get into all the exciting action following this race at Talladega. And let's start out by talking about that finish, right? Rickey Stenhouse Jr. getting a push from William Byron at the end of the race. And then, of course, on the inside lane was Brad Keselowski getting a push from Kyle Larson. And I've talked in previous Talladega race review videos on this show. It seems like the bottom lane always prevails, right? You see drivers try to go to the top, make a move, get the lead that way. But since the next gen era, it seems like that bottom lane has really prevailed, and that's usually the driver that wins. So Kyle Larson was trying to push the 6-car Brad Keselowski to the lead, but in the end, it was really William Byron and Rickey Stenhouse Jr. on the top lane edging him out. So you see here, even William Byron even tries to pull out last second to try to take the lead away, but it's just so difficult to do it, and it probably wasn't going to work at any point. If he'd have pulled out a little earlier, probably would have just slowed both of them down. And that would obviously give Ford the win, and I don't think definitely couldn't have pulled out any later because it was already too late there. So not much William Byron I think could do at that point in the race, but certainly another classic photo finish at Talladega. Just 2 cars pushing. That was great from 2 what I would say veteran drivers. Rickey Stenhouse Jr. is really well known for finishing good at these type of races. I go back to a few Daytona 500s where he was up front at the end, even if he doesn't get the results. As they talked about on the broadcast, the same guys always seem to be up front at the end. There's about maybe 10 or 12 guys that are always up front at the end of these races, and that was, of course, the deal today. Brad Keselowski, who's won, 5 or 6 times at Talladega, was so close to getting another one. And then, of course, you had Rickey Stenhouse Jr. getting his 2nd Talladega win, and he's also got 2 wins at Daytona. So I believe this is his 4th career win. I do want to mention a couple laps before this, you did see Kyle Busch up front. Kyle Busch did try to turn out. I think this was 2 laps ago to try to make a move. But unfortunately, nobody went with him, so that's why Kyle Busch ended up finishing outside the top 10. A little surprised that at the end of the race, and we can go back and take a look, is that everyone stayed single file, right? Until William Byron coming to the checker. Nobody really tried to make a move to get the race win, which I was sort of surprised by. I would have thought we would have seen someone try to make a 3rd lane like we saw all day long, right? I mean, some of the most intense racing I've ever seen. 4-wide racing consistently throughout the race, and we stayed single file there in the final 2 laps. So certainly a bit strange that was what occurred, but definitely a great win for Rickey Stenhouse Jr., a heartbreaking loss for Brad Keselowski, and what has been a bit of a tough season for him, right? A lot of close calls. Brad Keselowski does have a win this year, was eliminated from the playoffs a couple of weeks ago, but a nice run today at one of his best racetracks. I'm sure Brad Keselowski, it won't be long until he gets back into victory lane at Talladega. His last time was 2021, so it's been a while since we've seen Brad Keselowski in victory lane at this racetrack. But let's go through the entire top 10, right? We can talk about the front 2, Stenhouse, Brad Keselowski battling it out at the end. William Byron, once again, like I said, pulling out a line to try to make something at the last second. But it was really those top 4 pushing each other for the win. But a lot of good moves today by Erik Jones to finish in the 5th position, right? We saw early in the race he was able to maneuver on the high lane, had a really good race car, was able to take that 3rd or 4th lane all the way to the front as the leader, which we saw other drivers try to lead that 3rd or 4th line, and it wouldn't work out so great. So nice finish there for Erik Jones. Had a fast car all day long, and he's had success at Talladega in recent memory. Christopher Bell, once again, props to Christopher Bell, right? Because he's been known for the driver that's had struggles at these tracks, previously for multiple years at the beginning of his career. Made some, sketchy mistakes, right? You go to a couple Daytona 500s, 2021, where everyone sort of places the blame on Christopher Bell for making mistakes. But he's really cleaned that up, and there's obviously been some very obvious effort put into running better at super speedways, right? I believe he's finished in the top 10 more super speedway than he's not. He's not wrecking out of super speedway races as much. He did wreck out, I think, at Talladega earlier this year, but the results are there, right? He's finishing better at Atlanta, top 5. He's finishing better at Daytona. I think he's finished 3rd in the Daytona 500 2 years in a row now. So certainly that super speedway or drafting track style racing has gotten way better. His talent has gotten way better for Christopher Bell. Justin Haley in the 7 car, nice top 10 for that team. Good momentum booster from last week where he did not finish the race at Kansas. Austin Dillon in the 8th position, nice run for him. Had a solid day all day long. Never really got the lead, but had a decent race car. Was running up front for most of the day. Bubba Wallace, another one of those drivers that has won at Talladega before, finishing in the top 10, a nice top 10 for the 23 team. And then Denny Hamlin, who was riding in the back all day. We thought it was going to be a repeat of Atlanta. He was going to be outside the playoffs again, score no stage points, get no results. Actually, after the huge crash with 5 laps to go, that put Denny Hamlin in a good position to finish in the 10th position, and that's solid for Denny Hamlin. That's a massive increase, right? You're running outside the top 30, you have a 28 car pile up, and boom, you're right there in the top 10. So Denny Hamlin's strategy did work today, as it has many years past. But there's been a bit of a decline in Denny Hamlin's super speedway ability, right? You go from winning multiple Talladega races to winning 3 Daytona 500s to not winning a single super speedway or drafting race in this next-gen car. So that's certainly also an interesting storyline we'll have to keep up with moving through into next season, as this was the last drafting track race of the 2024 season, and that's certainly interesting. Let's take a look at a couple of big crashes, right? Midway through the race, coming to the end of stage 2, we have our first big wreck, and this is going to shake up the playoff grid a lot. That's why I want to bring it up before I show it. As Ryan Blaney gets turned sideways or gets sort of ran through by the 48 car, in his words, and shoots up the racetrack into Ross Chastain, barely dodging Kyle Busch. Logano gets a little bit of damage from this. Denny Hamlin looks like he might have got a little bit of damage from this as well. Certainly unfortunate. That was a huge wreck. Luckily, both of those drivers that were mainly involved were okay, got out of the race car shortly after. They were fine, walked out of the care center. That's certainly great to see. But Ryan Blaney really frustrated after this. You can sort of judge this yourself. He explained in his post-race interview that Bowman sort of drove through him. If I look at it, that is one of the areas that you're not really supposed to push other drivers, and nobody else did it all day long. So certainly, I kind of sided with Ryan Blaney on this. Probably shouldn't have hit him or pushed him at that exact point in the racetrack. Then we have 5 laps to go. The huge accident. You see Todd Gilliland on the inside. Great job of him getting out of the way, trying to just stay out of the way of this upcoming pack, right? Going for the race win. Under 10 laps to go, 5 laps to go. And then you see a bit of a push, right? And it starts all the way back from Chase Briscoe, all the way forward through Logano, into the 2 car of Austin Cindric, right? And that's really, you can blame the car right behind him, but it was really that whole accordion effect of all those cars pushing, trying to get a run. And it was on the back straightaway, too, which makes it even more frustrating, right? And the 2 car just completely loses it. I'm not really sure what could have been done different there. I usually can point at something that could have been done different. You can usually blame a specific driver, but not really in this incident. It's just everyone pushing so hard and just surprised that the 2 car got that loose. Brad Keselowski maybe hit him a little bit to the left side there, and that's what shot him up the track, but really just an unfortunate situation there. Took out a lot of good race cars. That's what took Logano out. Tyler Reddick, a lot of playoff guys involved in this crash. Chase Briscoe involved, which is going to put him in a must-win situation. Daniel Suarez was involved in multiple issues all day long. Chase Elliott involved in this. Ryan Blaney obviously taken out before this, but certainly really frustrating there. And we'll take a look now at the playoff grid, because really who was involved in those wrecks and who wasn't involved in those wrecks sort of determines where you're at now. So here we go. William Byron obviously is now clinched. He is now in the next round of the playoffs with a 74-point cushion with his 3rd place finish today and a lot of stage points. So a great day for the 24 team of William Byron. He will stay the number 1 seed going into the final race of this round, into the Roval next week at Charlotte. Christopher Bell, 57 points above. Great day for Christopher Bell, right? Obviously got some stage points, but that top 5 finish, or that top 6 finish, 6th place, was a great finish for Christopher Bell. Now 57 points in after a nice run last week. Good run today. That's fantastic for them. Kyle Larson, a little bit of a concern going into this Talladega race with previous results. The numbers and the statistics were not on their side going into this Talladega race, but he's now 52 points above the cut line. That's certainly a massive advantage. Looks like he should sort of coast to the next round of the playoffs. I mean, unless something disastrous goes wrong early, these top 3 should be able to coast to the next round of the playoffs. Denny Hamlin gets a little closer, 30 points in, but that's still a nice buffer after the 10th place finish today, so good run for him getting the 10th place finish. Gave up on a few stage points today, but in the end, it did work out for him. Ryan Blaney, 25 points above, so still a solid cushion, but you're going to have to perform next week at the Roval. Obviously get caught up in an issue early, could raise concerns for missing the next round. Tyler Reddick, still a bit disappointed in how really everything has gone for him. Not a lot of speed since the playoffs have started, almost starting to remind me of another Toyota driver last year, a Martin Truex Jr., who was one of the favorites going in, and then really dwindled when the playoffs started. That could be, I'm seeing a lot of resemblance from 2023 Martin Truex Jr. and 2024 Tyler Reddick so far. Obviously, a disastrous week last week outside the top 30, getting involved in the big one, the big huge crash with 5 laps to go today. Not really getting many stage points from Tyler Reddick. It seems like a lot of stuff is going wrong for the 45 team. We'll have to continue to watch that moving forward. Only 14 points in now, going to a road course. If he doesn't perform, he doesn't get stage points. Guys like Logano, Suarez, Cindric, who's had success at road courses, even Briscoe could gain on that points advantage and sort of knock him out. Chase Elliott only 13 points in as well after getting involved in the big one today, so certainly Chase Elliott going to look to try to get an advantage next week at the Roval, a track that he has won at. Another driver that we've seen had a lot of success at road courses, but not so much, at least number-wise, in the next-gen car. So win-wise, right? He's had a lot of success finishing up front, but he hasn't won. I don't think he's won a single road course race in the next-gen era now that I think about it, which is certainly something interesting. Joey Logano, once again, just didn't have a good week last week. Got a few stage points today. Was up front, aggressive all day long, but it did not pay off. Got involved in that wreck with 5 to go. Terrible day for Joey Logano. Now 13 points below the cut line. We'll have to see what he can do at a road course, which he's at speed at next week. Can Joey Logano, who I was starting to consider one of the championship favorites, can he advance into the next round of the playoffs? Going to be a big storyline, the 2-time champion. Can he go for 3 after next week at the Roval? Daniel Suarez, once again, a disastrous day for Daniel Suarez, actually. And I'm a bit disappointed in this team because what I saw today at the beginning of the race, what is this, lap 12? So Suarez, let's kind of break down the story of his day, right? Had to serve a penalty for unapproved adjustment, had to go down pit road to start the race, a typical pass-through penalty, tries to turn back up into the racetrack. This is after getting one lap down, and turns into BJ McLeod and wrecks himself. Well, not entirely sure what this was. I think this was a really bad move. This shows me that this team is not entirely, after the performance in the first 12 laps, is not ready for the playoff pressure at Talladega at this level. Really disappointing look there. That was a really bad look by the 99 team. Where's the crew chief, the spotter, telling him that he can't do this? Just try to catch up to the back of the pack. I don't think he would have lost 2 laps. I think he would have been able to catch up. Instead, he did lose multiple laps after wrecking himself. So disastrous day by Suarez. He actually ended up, after getting caught up in that wreck, also got caught up in the wreck with 5 laps to go. So man, disastrous day by the 99 team. Would like to have to go back and see exactly what was going on there. Austin Cindric, 29 points below now after, once again, running up front, but was leading with 5 laps to go, right? Going for the lead, got turned sideways. Unfortunately, was involved in the wreck with 5 to go as well, taken out of the playoffs. I'd say you consider it a must-win going into next week, right? It might not mathematically be one, but you can consider it one. That's how he needs to approach it. Same thing with Chase Briscoe. Didn't really see Briscoe all day long, right? He should have been getting stage points. Didn't see him up there. He got involved in the wreck with 5 laps to go, so a really bad point day for Briscoe. Another one of the drivers in pretty much a must-win. Maybe not mathematically, but he's not going to point his way in, right? You have to approach this going for the race win next week at the Roval, which is certainly possible for a driver like Chase Briscoe. But that's really it. That's all there is to talk about following this Talladega, or at least I tried to get into it, right? We had a lot of action-packed 4-wide racing, 3-wide racing, but really one of those rare races or an occurrence that I guess I've never seen before until today was that 4-wide racing, so tight, close corners, all the way around this racetrack for multiple laps and almost, hours of racing. So certainly a mentally draining race for the drivers, which is exciting for us fans to watch. But that's really it. All there's to talk about next week is the Roval, right? The cutoff race of round 2. 4 drivers get eliminated from the playoffs. We go from 12-driver playoff field to an 8-driver playoff field. So it's going to be a lot to watch next week at the Roval points-wise. But that's it. All there's to talk about. Like and subscribe if you like the video. Please share the video if you do. I really do appreciate it. And of course, man, about Kyle Busch, still quite not getting that win after a fast car today. Let's get rowdy.